It's your boy Carcino here. We got to get into this because Stephen A. Smith was caught lying again about Max Kellerman on Andre Ward's show, The Art of War.
In steps, Max Kellerman.
Yes.
I think y'all had a 3 year.
I went no 5 years.
5 years, okay.
I went. Max was doing Sports Nation and what have you, and obviously, you know, I needed a partner. They were looking for somebody to replace Skip for 5 days a week, and I knew that his personality was different than that of Skip Bayless, but obviously he's a brilliant brother and knows his sports, and also he had really good relationships internally. And so having those relationships internally, knowing that I had aspirations to move First Take to ESPN, because at the time it was on ESPN2, and I had aspirations to move the show to ESPN.
For those that don't know, bigger audience, E1 is just different.
All of that stuff, you know, what people, you know, by habit, you know, that's what they're gonna do. And so because of that, I knew that that was something that he would help move along. And sure enough, that, you know, after he came on board, you know, that was one of the commitments that they were willing to make. So I was happy about that.
Now, say he was happy about Max Kellerman coming to join the team. Said he had a lot of things, so he was happy about Max Kellerman joining ESPN's First Take when they decided and they was pushing for Max to come in. Now, the thing about this is that Will Kane was the best candidate for what they wanted to do on the show. And I felt that, but Stephen A. wasn't going to be able to control Will Kane. So that's why Will Kane didn't get selected. And the fact is, Will Kane was the one that had a lot of pushback. He had a lot of right-wing thoughts, and he was definitely dedicated to be a Cowboy fan. And I said, Will Kane is best for what you want for this show. But Stephen A. can't control Will Kane. So he's like, okay, well, he's not going to do what I need him to do. So I'm going to just bounce. We'll bring him in for guest spots. But right now, I need Max. Max is a little corporate. He knows it's my show. And that's what he wanted. He wanted somebody to know it's my show. What I say go. And when I say jump, you say how high, you're going to respect the chain of command. Will Kane wasn't going to do all that. And Max was being nice saying, hey, let's do this, and was doing it for 2 years before it started to change. But let's see where Stephen A. goes left.
And you said pretty early on, you started noticing just that, okay, you know, I got my approach. I'm straight to the point. I'm unapologetic about it. Max has a slightly different approach, but you felt like it wasn't gonna work long before then.
I felt like about 2 years in, I didn't think it was gonna work long term. I didn't have regrets about bringing him on board. It's just that, you know, that as time was evolving and you saw the other shows and you saw the talent, people clamoring for a point of view mattered. You know, he knows what he's talking about. And when he opens his mouth, you got to listen because, you know, I mean, the brother is brilliant. But in the same breath, they're looking for conflict and confrontation.
It's a debate show.
That's right. It's a debate show. And it got to a point where that's not what folks were getting. And so you see people opening their mouths and talking about, you know, it was Stephen A. wanted this or whatever. Let me look into the camera and tell people something that you may not know about me, but you better learn. I pay attention to research. It's not about what I want. It's about what the audience wants. We got focus groups and all of that stuff that they do in television that tells you what the audience wants, what it's clamoring for, what it thinks it needs, what it thinks it needs to get rid of, etc., etc., etc. So what it was saying was, we together didn't work.
Wrong. Here's what happened, ladies and gentlemen. I made a video telling and dictating why the show was failing and why Undisputed was beating them and was the better show. And I showed them that Max Kellerman is not a debater. Max Kellerman is not passionate about debates. He's a man that comes from a point of logic. So what he's saying here is actually true to a degree. I'm going to show you where the lying comes in at. Because he's saying, oh, we're doing the focus groups. We're going to put this out and I'm going to get all these people to show so I can run in the office and say, look, the people don't want Max. No, it said you and Max can't work together because you and Max does not have a team. He's not passionate about it. He'll debate you and give you facts, but he's not passionate like Skip. Skip is diehard. No matter what, he's going to find a way to defend the Dallas Cowboys. That's not going to happen with Max. Max going to be like, if you make a good point, he's going to be like, all right, that's a good point. But he's going to give you pros and cons of everything. And they saying, the people were like, that's not what we're getting on this show. No, they were having better debates than you on the other channel. And you knew Shannon Sharpe just was burning everything up over there. And y'all was like, man, they killing and they crushing the game. We losing. Even though your show was number one only because of outlets. You were getting crushed by Shannon and Skip. Everybody was watching them and nobody was watching y'all. And you wanted to blame it all on Max Kellerman. No, Max tried to change and tried to get more vocal and scream, but it was not fooling anyone. Emotion is different from passion. Because you screaming loud and getting all loud about it does not make it passionate. Like if me and him had a debate about boxing and I said Pernell Whitaker wasn't this, Max Kellerman would probably jump out of his seat and start defending Pernell Whitaker. Because he would be very passionate about that. So he lacked the passion. But here's the thing. What Stephen A is trying to point out is that he's saying, oh, this wasn't because of me. This is what the people wanted. It's a lie. Because the people didn't want you. But you ain't mentioned that.
It was a byproduct of what we had trained the audience to be accustomed to with me and Skip. And the fact that that wasn't there, okay, is something they lamented. My point is, that's what they lamented.
It's not personal.
It's not personal.
Never been.
It's not personal. They didn't say me, him, or whatever. They said us. So what I was saying was, okay, they said that in year 2, and 3, and 4. And now here we are in year 5. What y'all gonna do about it? Why would I want to stay on that if that's what the audience is telling us and we're not doing anything about it? So I was willing to come off First Take and do other things. And obviously they didn't want that. And so they made the decision that they made. And when they made that decision, I knew that my career was on the line. Because if you kept me on board, I had to make it work or else. And I was like Stephen A. against the world. They were like, what? I said, I'll take on all comers. I don't care who it is. I said, because one way or another, it's going to be interesting.
And this is where his ego and his lying comes into play. What people... What about now? See? See what I'm talking about? Sabotage Sally. All because they want to protect the liars. He was mad Max Kellerman was making him look obsolete. He was mad. The general public's reaction to the show was Stephen A sounds like a sellout and Max sounds like the black man. Because many people didn't know Max Kellerman's plug with black people. He's around black people a lot. Hell, a black guy was living with his brother. He was a rapper. He hung around blacks all the time. So for him, it was different. He was down. And most people who was watching Max, you look at Max and he talk all intelligent and everything, you wouldn't think of that of Max. And then when they hear Max talk, and they was like, okay, he has the black people's perspective. The same thing the brothers would think Max was saying. Everything that the black people were saying was coming out of the mouth of Max, where Stephen A had a more conservative black person's approach to the situation, a company man approach to the situation. And therefore, no one respected him. He had no respect. He had nobody backing him. Everybody looked at him as if he was a punk and just said, man, you a sucker. And that's how they treated him. Nobody gave him respect. He was the Rodney Dangerfield of this. Nobody cared about him. Yes, sir. So if you take a look at everything that's been going on lately, you're starting to notice a pattern. And when you start to notice a pattern, you're starting to notice a situation that doesn't make a lot of sense. When people are starting to go back and go through your situations, and they're starting to look into all of these different, they're starting to go through all of these different scenarios. You start to see right away he was lying on Max Kellerman. You went in there crying to get Max removed for 5 years. You threatened to leave. I said I would go do something else. No, you threatened to leave. I'll leave. I won't resign. It's either me or him. And they didn't want to lose Max. And that's why to this day, you have people at that network that don't like you. But the networks had to keep you so you wouldn't go running to Fox. So you use that as your leverage. Then when they brought in Pat McAfee, your days were numbered. Because what you was doing was becoming obsolete. And then you started this big fuss, and then you started to go to work on your platform. I got to build up this show. I got to build it up. You built it up, hating on everybody. Shannon Sharpe built your platform. Skip Bayless and Pat McAfee. Pat was on your show. You got mad. They put Pat McAfee on your show on Wednesdays to be the lead-in into his program. And he didn't have to answer to nobody. Oh, you didn't like that. Norby had no power over him. Only the bosses, the head honchos. That's the boss of the bosses, baby. See? Now, when you start hearing things and seeing things go in a direction that don't make sense, that's when you start asking questions. Oh yeah. Straight up and down. Here's the news. Stephen A. Smith, you were caught lying again because the numbers dictated one result clear. Max Kellerman was the reason that the show was going down because the numbers dictated that the show wasn't losing anything. Right? Then you said, oh, I was on the line. I had to show and prove. Oh no, they said, we'll get rid of Max. Okay, you got your wish because we got to clean house and get rid of these contracts. So you got Max Kellerman out of there and you timed it when you had to go get throat surgery. You had to go to the dentist. You made that appointment right on the day Max was getting fired, on his last day working for ESPN. Then you knew that was going to be the story. Stephen A., oh man, look at that. Stephen A. took off right when they was about to talk about all of this stuff about him. He know now Max finna leave. He don't want to be there on Max's last day. Everybody knew it was beef. You strategically wasn't there. Okay, sure, we'll bite. Then what did you do? What did you do after that? Huh? What did you do after that fact? I'll tell you what he did. Stephen A. decided, you know what's the next best move? This is going to be a doozy. He decided it was going to be in his best interest to change the narrative. Yet again, I need to change the narrative into my favor. You ran to the bosses for 3 years. So how after 2 years, Max became a problem and it wasn't going to work? How wasn't it going to work after 2 years? If it's been working for 2 years, why now do you see it to a point where it's not working? Huh? Why now? Why now? That's why I say he's a liar. Because the numbers dictated it. You didn't want him there because you couldn't look like the big boss. You want to be the smart guy on the show. But Max is smarter than you. So whenever you try to land something on Max, it wasn't really landing. And in the first 2 years, Max was allowing you to get some room to breathe. But every time Max tried to get something to going for himself, you want to shut him down immediately. So you would never let him get any rise on the show. And you would just shut him down every time. So the fact that the man has been proven, and shouts out to Marcellus Wiley too, for pointing out the fact of your inaccuracies in your lives. Okay? Because it's been going on for so long. Everybody's sick and tired of it. I know I am. I'm sick of this dude lying. Yeah, Stephanie A. Smith is once again out here lying. Yeah, when T.O. said those words, when T.O. said, man, it's like Max is blacker than you. When Stephanie A. Smith was on that show and it got exposed, that hurt his heart. Stephanie couldn't take it. Oh, Stephanie was hurt. And the reason that Stephanie was hurt was because Stephanie had no wiggle room. Stephanie had no way out. No. That wasn't going to happen for old Stephanie. Can y'all hear me good? Okay. You can hear me better now? Because now the situations have turned. They've changed. Everybody has gotten up and went into their own corner, right? Everybody has their hand out for something. Everybody got a need. Everybody's like, yo, can you scratch my itch? You know, everybody has a need. Now, Molly Qerim was on the side of Max. Molly and Max got along well. And then it got to the point where Stephen A was like, look, he's turning Molly against me. He ain't like that. He found every little thing to complain about with Max Kellerman. So Max was like, okay, you trying to get me fired behind my back. All the ESPN writers, because Max was a writer, they respected Max. That's why he said he has a lot of pull at ESPN with people that supported him. But he tried to sell that Max Kellerman don't know anything about sports. He just knows a lot about boxing. And that he can debate, but he can't debate anything else. Where Max Kellerman differed and was like, I could debate you on any topic. You just want me to get into a shouting match with you. I make better points than you. Show me, let's go over all the topics. Okay, we can do that. And on all these topics, I'm really besting you. And what gives Stephen A credibility? He doesn't know nothing about college football, college basketball, pro basketball, NFL. He has zero credibility in any of them. This dude is playing solitaire during the NBA Finals and trying to promote it like it's the greatest game of all time when the camera was on. Oh man, this the NBA Finals. That's what it's about. Yeah. It's just like, come on, man. Everybody is hip to this skit. Like, it's like, my goodness, they pay you? You've been doing this scam for so long, they still paying you? And Mike Wilbon, he's at the point now, he's just old. He don't even do it no more. But he just, like his younger protege, Stephen A, is just follow script. Blame the black man at all costs. Somehow it's got to be the black man's fault. We just got to find out where the black man went wrong at and blame him ferociously for everything that went down. Wilbon is less annoying because he knows he don't have to be screaming and yelling. Wilbon used to be that way about 20 years ago. 20 years ago, Mike Wilbon used to be Stephen A. You had Peter Vesey used to do it, and then you had Mike Wilbon. But Wilbon just got too old, and they got Stephen A to try to do the same skit now that he was doing on First Take, and now he tries to be calmer. But you can see it's just phony. And that's the main thing about it, is the phoniness of it. If we're gonna have a debate about something, let's debate it. You bring up some points, some facts, and you defend it. I bring up points and facts and defend it. But why do we got to get in a screaming match? And now it's like a variety show. First Take has become the biggest joke on television, and that show is dead. There's no debates. You just bringing up people that have nothing to do with sports whatsoever. We got Drewski here. Drewski's wearing a Shedeur Sanders jersey. No, this is Barry Sanders. Oh, Barry Sanders. You know, they just have a bunch of people. They just want to trend on social media and be on TikTok and get all these clips and cuts and say the craziest things so it could be on social media. I'm like, if I depend on TikTok for information, I'll be lost forever. I would think Steph Curry was an alien. TikTok Shorts is about 75% misinformation. AI crap. Everything gonna slow down when you get in trouble because ain't nobody gonna want to listen to it no more. You see, he can't get nobody on Club Shay Shay. Who the last person he had on Club Shay Shay? Damien. What's his name? What's that? Cromier. He had the UFC fighter. Doughboy. Daniel Cormier. I'm like, damn, dog, you went from having the top list people in the world, now you got Damian Cormier to do your show. It was built on the back of black comedians. They had a great system going. And then they ruined it. They got no one to blame but themselves. They chose to go out and do the acts that they did. And because they put themselves in that predicament, everybody who was around at that time they were the victims. They were victimized. It wasn't the other way around. You see, when people start coming in and doing like virtually attacking your situation, that's what they're doing. Yeah, they coming in to attack your situation because they don't want you to grow. They don't want you to get to a position where you're empowered. They want you to be marginalized like everybody else that was in the game. Yeah, Scarface is dope because that's dope for us. But the American people, who is Scarface to them? You club Shay Shay. You done had Cat Williams, Monique, you done did all these viral interviews. Your guests became bigger and bigger. And now you did Scarface and Damian Cromier. How many people know who Damian Cromier is? Not a lot. Here's what I would always say to people who put like some of these athletes, they put them on pedestals and you be wondering why. Like, why are they there? Who put them on that pedestal? They don't deserve to be there. And you keep asking yourself those questions. All right, I just call him Doughboy. I don't call him Daniel Cromier or whatever. He's just Doughboy. I mean, all he was doing was up there was talking about was him losing. Him losing to John Jones. I'll never get, he's sitting there crying in the ring because he lost. Then the Stipe fight. Then he was out of shape. His conditioning was off. And then in the rematch, he was in the best shape ever. But he still was a doughboy and then took a head kick. And that was the night. That was it for Doughboy. I be like, what do people see in this Cromier guy? Like, they making him a star. I'm like, I just see a guy that gets beat. And it's like, they keep putting him up there, like, why do they keep mentioning these two? Like, he was never close to beating John Jones at all. John Jones will beat this dude 100 times out of 100. John Jones lost one fight in the UFC that I remember. And I said to myself, I said, he lost that. And I'm talking ever. He was never on his level. Yep, that tall white guy. The first, they had a rematch, and then it didn't go that way again. But the first fight, yeah, he won. He beat John Jones, and they gave it to John Jones because of the betting odds. But that guy won that. Now, they don't talk about him. Well, you want to talk about somebody with John Jones, mention that guy. Hell, we got to hear about Daniel Cormier. Like, the hell? He wasn't no threat. Stephen A. Smith, this dude got to work 75 jobs, man. He really do. He got to work 75 jobs. His family the only one that can enjoy the money. My thing is, why do you got to lie? Max Kellerman ain't been around you for about 2-3 years. Since how long Max been gone? Max been gone about 2-3 years. And you ain't seen nothing from him until they did this fight with Canelo and what's his name? Terrence Crawford. He's been sitting down for 2 years. He got his money. He chilling. He didn't go work for no other networks. He chilled. Now he coming back for to do his boxing thing again. And he's never mentioned anything about Stephen A. Smith. Not one thing. And because he's never mentioned one thing, never said nothing negative about this man publicly. This man, Stephen A. Smith, has talked about him in his book. He went on a whole tour of tearing down Max Kellerman. And now, on Andre Ward's show, you want to bring him up again about how you don't want to work with him. How many times are you going to keep telling the world you didn't want to work with Max Kellerman? You haven't worked with him about 2-3 years. But he was the only steady partner you had. You ain't even get a chance to fall out with Shannon. Well, you kind of did. Because you went on your show and said some things that Shannon kind of wished you didn't do. You know what I'm saying? He kind of wished you didn't do that. Because when you had a situation that was going on with LeBron, he stayed quiet. He ain't mentioned it on Nightcap, nothing. He stayed quiet. They did the whole show and nobody brought it up. When Brian pressed you at the courts, he ain't said a word. And then here you come wanting to mention something on your show about him. And he was like, I didn't use my platform for that. But yet, without talking to me, you go ahead and start bringing stuff up on the show. Shannon told a couple of friends about it. That he had an upset, but it put him in a position where he dealt with everybody differently. See, Stephen A. and Shannon had a difference that a lot of people didn't know about. They had a little, wasn't a big thing. It was just something that frustrated Shannon when they were out on they were doing the college football tour, right? And then they was covering the college game. And Shannon had said something, and I think Stephen A. cut him off. It was very condescending. Made it look like he didn't know what he was talking about. And right when Shannon was about to, to go off, have you ever played college football? Have you ever played college football? I played college football at this level, and I did that level, and it was like, Stephen A. just kind of shut him down. And he never let anybody, he was letting everybody get their shots off on Shannon, but every time Shannon tried to talk, he would cut him off. He was letting Dan Orlowski talk. He let everybody, even Molly got a chance to quack. And he was shutting Shannon Sharpe down. So, and he was like, man, why you stepping all on me today, man? You was stepping all over me today. And he was like, I was? Yeah, you was stepping on me out there. You was stepping all over me there. He was like, you were like Fred Astaire, boy. You was stepping all over me today. I don't know what that was about, but you let everybody talk except for me. I couldn't get a word in. He was, that wasn't my intention. I was just trying to move the show along. Because we were staying on the topic for so long. I was like, all right, okay, everybody got their shot in. To me, I heard your voice, so you was heard throughout the show. I'd go back and watch it and see if I was overstepping my bounds, but that wasn't my intentions. Well, I'm letting you know you were stepping all over me. So Shannon was upset, that. But they were on location. They were doing this show live. So while they were doing the show live and they were out on location covering the college football game, Stephen A. is trying to let people know I'm still the man. This ain't Shannon's show. It's Stephen A. Smith's show. So that's why he kept stepping on him. See, because that's what I'm saying. Stephen A. he be lying. If anybody can go get that episode and you'll find it yourself, you'll see why Shannon Sharpe was upset. See, I know why he was upset. Because they were stepping all on him. Like he had some Timberland shoes on. Now, we all know that Stephen A. Smith is a liar. And then he turns into Stephanie A. Smith all over again. So when you see all these, things start happening and people moving in a way that kind of don't sit well with you, then you know you being targeted. And when you being targeted, then you know what time it is. He wanted Shannon Sharpe to come over there for the ratings. Shannon boosted the ratings up so high, he doubled it. He doubled the ratings once they got Uncle Shannon over there. If that ain't moving the needle, I don't know what is. He said, I remember watching that episode where Stephen A. Smith kept cutting him off. He was doing that a lot, but he wanted to show out. That's the ego. His ego wouldn't let him breathe. Also, don't get real interested on the Patreon. Yes. Because they've been doing a lot of hating. So the Casino for Life Patreon is coming stronger than ever. Tell you, this month we've been dropping bombs. We didn't showed you the Hollywood Antichrist. We didn't showed y'all everything. You know what? People still ain't gonna believe it. When you see people that don't appreciate nothing you do, or they just using you to build themselves up and they taking credit for all your success, all the work you put in, everything, people got to make a decision on what it is that they intend on doing. What is their intentions? You know, when you start seeing people and their intentions are not right and the energy level is off, you'll know. That's one thing for sure. You don't know. Now, when some of these people start playing the game, is what we like to call it, the game, we start seeing them for what they truly are, man, and we start seeing people's real colors. And you start seeing people run and hide, they lie, they come up with all kind of, well, what did they say? Oh, I didn't say that. And they start playing these games that is not official with anybody. Well, the nature of the course is different because none of these people want to have the same problem that they have with everybody else. Ugh, there we go. No, because you're stuck with a bunch of people that are very irrelevant to the storyline. So when you have a lot of people that's involved in a storyline that doesn't add up to you trying to put Max Kellerman in a box every time because it fits a narrative of a lie that you want to keep perpetuating, that's how you know you got major problems on there. People are sick of it, man. They're tired of it. And because people are getting tired of it and people are pushing the narrative over and over again, we're going to start to see how this thing unfolds the more it keeps going down this road. Every time. So Like we always say, barbecue a mildew, baby. At the end of the day, Stephen A. Smith is exactly the type of person you need to stay away from. If you're working in this industry, if you're not finna be a bootlicking individual, he's not the guy for you. He gonna turn on you. He gonna use you to get what all he can, and then he gonna turn on you. Man, nobody I know got time for that. I was saying to myself that, shoot, people need to go and get themselves checked out if they believe that Stephen A. Smith lie. He go on these shows and on these podcast shows and just lie. It just don't even make sense. But that's the ego. You took my video to the ESPN bosses and played it for them. See, at that time, I knew a lot of people at ESPN, so that was a no-brainer. My video had like over 100,000 views plus. So that wasn't the case. It was Sabotage Sally. So it's a dirty game people are playing out here. But we gonna get to it. Because at the end of the day, I'll straighten it out. I'm out.